What is up, everybody? Today we're going to talk about increasing your business. And what if I told you that by doing what we're going to talk about today, you could increase your business by 60% or more? Amazing, right? So let's get into it. A team called the 21 Mike team. We're here in Ohio, all the way from Columbus up to Northeast Ohio, where we started out. Gosh, I was just thinking, I've been in the business going on 15 years, started out as a part-time solo agent and started growing a team after a couple of years. I left my full-time job after about 2.5 years in the business, never intended to grow a team, but bam, here we are, about 40 agents plus or minus. So anyone listening to this or watching it, if you're interested in talking to me about teams and how we can help grow your business, hit me up, Mike at 21mike.com. So today's topic is about business growth, and I love numbers, I love stats. I think they tell a story. I have a buddy who says, yeah, 70% of stats are made up. Of course, that's a tongue-in-cheek joke, but analyzing numbers is really a great way to figure out where you're at in your business and what's working, what isn't. And that's kind of what we're going to talk about today. So I'll show you exactly where I'm getting these numbers from and why follow-up is so important. So the first number I'm going to talk about here is regarding lead conversion. Okay, and definitely converting leads is just one part of having a successful business. We know as realtors that still almost 70% of our business comes from our sphere, comes from referrals, past clients, friends, relatives, referral sources. When you think about realtors, we should be fostering these relationships. We should be out there figuring out who we can connect with, that we can help, who in return can help us. So for example, you should be racking your brain thinking about, all right, what estate attorneys do I know? I just got a great referral from an estate attorney who I've been friends with for, oh gosh, since the late 90s, and I stay in touch with her. They're good friends of our family. And the other day she calls me up and says, hey, I've got a client who needs to sell a duplex. And she also has a couple apartment buildings. But that introduction, that relationship leads to a referral maybe every couple of years. So that's great. You build those relationships, but what about the follow-up? What about online lead conversion? And so what I'm showing on the screen, or if you're just listening, is how to convert leads. This is by a guy who started a company called Curator, which is all about lead conversion, another CRM. We were talking about Follow Up Boss, and yeah, there's a bunch of them out there. You guys know what the CRMs are, but Chris Smith talks about, first of all, the time, speed to lead, as our coach Fred talks about it. And you can see that the waiting just 5 minutes drops your conversion 100 times. So it's so important to call leads right away. The difference between calling a lead within 5 minutes and waiting anywhere in the first 30 minutes, it's 100 times lower probability that you will catch them. So what you should be hearing when you're following up on leads is, oh wow, I'm still sitting here on my phone or on my tablet or on my computer looking at these houses. That's when you catch people. So important, speed to lead. Back when they ran this survey, they found that the median response time for real estate agents was 3 hours and 8 minutes. That was the median, which is pretty sad. I think what happens is a lot of agents get leads and they just let them sit and they say, I'll call when I have time. But this is what it's costing you. It's costing you hundreds of times less chance of catching them when you do finally get back to them. The other appalling stat is that they found that 47% of the leads, the test leads that they did in this experiment, this study, 47% never got a response, which is terrible. I think that agents in general think that the leads suck. That's what we hear. Oh, the leads suck. So I heard a coach speak at a Century 21 event a few years ago, and he's not my favorite guy, but still I'll always remember this quote. He stood up on stage in front of a couple thousand Century 21 agents and he said, do the leads suck or do you suck? So, pretty pointed words, but looking at these stats, I can kind of nod with him and say, yeah, we do kind of suck. So speed to lead is so important. The next page is the follow-up, okay? And this is where the money is. I'm gonna show you another stat here, talk about this other stat, but he talks about the number of times that we try to connect with a lead. And in his book, The Conversion Code, he kind of pointed to 6 as a sort of as a magic number, okay? So, he shows here, if you try once, the number of leads you'll actually make contact with is 48%. Okay, and that's if you're calling quickly. And then 2 contacts goes up to 70%, 3 is 81%, 4 is 86%, 5 is 90%, 6 attempts is when you get to that 93%, and he goes all the way up to 9 attempts where it goes up to 97%. So this is the number of times you try to contact a lead, and you can see it nearly doubles going from 1 to 6 attempts. Okay, this is all about lead conversion, and I'm gonna tell you a quick story. Back in the day when I got licensed, I was brand new, I didn't really know anything, I didn't have a mentor, I didn't have a team, I just figured, "Hey, I'm a part-time agent, I'll figure this out." I was solicited by a company called ushud.com. Uh, Grant, you probably remember these guys because 'cause you've been licensed long enough, but the the deal was it was $199 a month, and they would buy these various domain names, hudhomes.com. They worked the word HUD, the abbreviation HUD, into the various websites they had, and they would drive traffic for foreclosure properties to their websites. And then what they would do is they would sell those leads to agents. And back in 2008, 2009, when I was getting started and they solicited me, I'm like, 200 bucks a month, that's not bad. And if they're going to give me all these leads, okay. And I did that for a few years. I worked with ushud.com for quite a while. Now, of course, in hindsight, those leads were garbage. They were very low priced homes. And that's what I did. That's what I did for the first couple of years. But the key was that I had a system and I just kept calling and calling and calling them. I didn't know any of this stuff. No one taught me this. But at the time, I really didn't understand the importance of working my sphere either. So all I had were these leads. And what I did, I had my job. I had a basically 7:30 in the morning till 5:30 in the evening job. I was in construction doing project management every single day on my drive home from work, whether it was, 5:30 until I got home, about 45 minutes. I had all these leads saved in my phone and never got in an accident, thank God. But I would start with the new ones and then I would pick up where I left off the day before and I would just call these leads every day. I couldn't call them all because after, I was getting about 30 leads a month from ushud.com. So as you could do the math and figure out how quickly those added up. But I would get on average 1 or 2 new ones a day. And then for the rest of that drive, I would call all the old ones. And I would do that until either A, I got them and converted them and made them my client, or B, they said, don't call me anymore. Literally, that's how long I would call people. So this whole 6 attempts thing, I mean, I was trying people a dozen times or more until I either got them or until they said, stop calling me or I've already purchased, I'm not interested. One of my favorite stories about that was there was a one lead I got. A guy's name was Ed Hill. I'll never forget him. I called that man for a year, and he was inquiring on some $80,000 property in North Homestead. And one day, after never returning any of my calls, after a year, Ed Hill calls me, "Hey, Mike, thanks for staying in touch. I'm ready." And I was just, no explanation, nothing to him. He didn't even think twice about it. But because I had stayed in touch with him for a year, he's like, well, in his mind, I was his agent because I had followed up so many times. Ed Hill ended up buying an 80,000 give or take house in North Olmsted. Fast forward about 8 years, maybe it was more like 10 years. Ed Hill retired and decided to move to the Carolinas, and guess who he called to sell that house, which was now like a $150,000 house or something. But because I called that man so many times, I got 2 sales out of it, which is the whole point of it. Ed trusted me, and I showed him how persistent I was. All right, so this is online lead conversion. The other thing I want to show you today is another stat, And this comes from, oh, here it is right here. This comes from Boomtown, which is one of the premium real estate CRM platforms. Okay, if you're looking for like the best of the best, Boomtown is one of them. Follow Up Boss is another amazing one. Our team uses Top Producer, which I know some people are going to roll their eyes and be like, "Oh, Top Producer." But listen, use a CRM. That's the bottom line. Do something. So I don't care if it's in your calendar, on a spreadsheet, something. Do something. But this is where agents are losing the money. And this is that 60 plus percent I was talking about in the beginning, where I said, hey, do you want to increase your business? This is after the first contact. Okay. The reason I think that agents say the leads suck is because the people they do talk to, first of all, people don't respond because they don't try enough times. Oh, I called, I emailed, I texted, I called I tried a couple times, never heard from them. Okay, well, you didn't try enough, number one. And number two, after you connect, you don't follow up. Many agents don't follow up enough. So that's what this chart, these numbers are talking about. They broke down over the course of a year how many of those people transact. So the whopping number in the beginning is that low hanging fruit. That's what agents are looking for. And it's only 8% transact in the first 30 days. And I think this is why agents say the leads suck. Well, I want to get a lead that buys or sells a home right away. That's what we all want. But the reality is that only 8% of the leads that are out there, that's going to happen in the first 30 days. Months 2 to 3, 27%. So if you're an okay agent at following up, that's 35%, but you're missing out on the other 65%. A third, 33% transact in months 4 to 6. And months 7 to 12, 22%, and 12 or more months, 10%. So my Ed Hill story, he's the 10% there. But when I was getting these junky leads from ushud.com, I was getting 95% or more of people to convert with me because I followed up. And then once I made that connection with them, I kept talking to them. So these are the numbers. If you want copies of these, just hit me up, Mike at 21mike.com. I'd be happy to send them over to you. But here's what I want to do. I've summed this up in 4 kind of talking points for how to be successful in lead conversion, even following up with your referrals, all sources of business. And whether you're in real estate or anything, any business, these concepts hold true. So there's four points. Number 1, track, measure, and plan. So using a CRM is ideal, but I'll be honest with you, back in the day when I was buying ushud.com leads, I see Drew joined us. He probably remembers ushud.com, but I had a system. I had people in email folders. I would put appointments on my calendar. So if I did connect with someone, I'd say, oh, great, I connected with Jessica today, and she wants me to follow up with her in a week. I'd put an appointment on the calendar. So certainly your CRM does a way better job than just a calendar, but I would track and measure and plan for how I was going to follow up with people. Okay, so a calendar is one way to do it. Excel spreadsheet, better than nothing. Start on a spreadsheet and then upload those contacts into your CRM. Okay, so that's number 1, track, measure, plan. Number 2, and June, who's on the call on the team here, we had this conversation. It's knowing what to say, having a plan for what you're going to say. And of course, what comes from having a plan is confidence. So if you are calling people following up and you don't already know what you're going to say, you're going to sound less confident on the phone. So wherever you are in that conversation with that person, take notes and know what the next call is going to be about. I'm going to get to that in a second. So number 2 is know what to say, and that will give you confidence. Know what you are going to say on these follow-ups. Number 3, the method of delivery. Okay, so what does that mean? I'll talk to teammates and they'll say, yeah, Mike, I tried to call that lead 3 times, never got through. What's my first question? I know Grant's going, yeah, I know exactly where he's going with this. Did you try text? Did you try email? On some occasions, are you visiting people in person? Obviously, that's the least efficient way of reaching a lot of people, but sometimes in-person contacts are great, but call, text, and email. And if you call people and they text you back, guess what? That's how they want you to communicate with them. So mix it up, figure out how these folks want to communicate with you and communicate in that manner. So method of delivery, that's number 3. And number 4, this is going back to knowing what you're going to say and having confidence. What do we always talk about? We're not selling. We don't really sell in this business, right? We're selling ourselves kind of in, having people have confidence in us and our abilities. But number 4 is offer value. So your follow-up calls should not just sound like this. Hey, Jad, it's Mike. I'm just checking to see if you're ready yet. Are you ready to let me sell you a house? Are you ready to list your house? No, take a different approach. How can you be valuable to the people that you're talking to, whether it's leads, whether it's referrals, past clients? How are you valuable to them? What can you give them? Change your mindset from a place of selling to a place of giving. So some examples here. I was just thinking about my conversation with June. Instead of, hey, you're by owner, you know, when, how long are you going to do that? And when might you be ready to interview agents because I want you to hire me? Instead, what can you give a for sale by owner? What can you give them that would be valuable? How about something like, geez, you're selling by owner. Have you ever done that before? No. Are you familiar with the paperwork that you need to sell your house? Do you know what a residential property disclosure is? Do you know what a lead paint disclosure is? How about bringing a buyer? I know that this is a sore point for some of us because I always hated that objection when I was heavy dialing phones. Yeah, Mike, we'll talk to you. Bring me a buyer. You guys have never heard that objection before, right? Yeah, if you bring me a buyer, I'll work with you. But why not? Why not? Why not? If you have buyers in the area and you are an expert in an area, like June is an expert in Euclid, what's wrong with calling people in your area and saying, look, I'm an area expert. I do have a lot of buyers in the area, and I'm interested to learn more about your home. If I do bring you a buyer, would you work with me? And a lot of times that's a great segue into, you know what? I'm just so exhausted from trying to sell this home by owner. You've been so kind about giving me information. You've even brought a buyer or two to tour my home. We're going to possibly list and we'd like to talk to you about it. And that all comes from giving value, not from taking, not from selling, but from how you give value. So guys, that's what I have for you today. It's all about increasing your business through follow-up. We know the numbers are already bearing out that number of transactions has dropped. I was just looking at these. We had 731 transactions in January, which is down from the 900s and low 1000s from the last couple of years. 5 years ago in January, it was something like 900 transactions. And I think that trend is going to hold true for the rest of the year. So if we have 10 to 20% fewer transactions each month, what does that mean for your business? How are you going to at least stay where you were last year and in previous years, or possibly grow your business? I know I was looking at our numbers. Last January, we closed 14 sales. This January, it was 17. So we were actually slightly up, which I was thankful for. But believe me, with everyone, talking about how many fewer transactions are being done, but something as simple as follow-up and having a plan. So I'll recap those 4 things. Track and measure, know what to say is number 2, which will give you confidence. Your methods of delivery, number 3, and number 4 is offering value. So that's what I have for you today, guys. Going to end a couple minutes early. And of course, I'll stick around if anyone has questions, or hit me up, Mike at 21mike.com. You can also go to our website to schedule an appointment there.